Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Miles Offside podcast. Oh, what's that? A bit of a different intro. Yeah, you love it, don't you? My name is Chuck Bailey, and with me, as always, is our super producer, Ian Stimpson. Ian, we obviously recorded our FPL podcast during my daughter's birthday. I'm now recording this one, missing Bake Off. So if we can make it quick, that would be great.
Okay. More worried about Bake Off, are we? Then because we spent a good half hour, 40 minutes doing the FPL pod on the day of your daughter's birthday.
Look, my daughter will turn 3. Yeah, sure, once, but I want to see Jurgen making some German bread. So
exactly, yeah, it is German week as well. Yeah. Exactly. So we are obviously 1/3 down this week, as you can tell. Oscar is a bit under the weather, so we wish him all the best. However, joining us, making his very first mop debut, he is a patron of this lovely podcast. Some would call him the Gordon Gekko of the mop oeuvre. FPL Shagger himself. He'll support Tottenham no matter what you say about them. It is the one and only Jeff Pedder. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you very much for that interesting introduction. Very much appreciate the opportunity to come on. Not sure you know what you've let yourself in for, but excited for it. Although I'm interested to hear this is my first debut. I want to know when my second debut is going to be.
So, your second debut is when you head off to other podcasts around Europe, and then you come back many years later. It will be your debut, even though you've done it before. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Also, in that brilliant intro, Chuck, FPL Shagger was quite prominent. That means Jeff now can't say to his wife, "Oh, I was on a podcast. Do you want to listen to this?"
I mean, that was my key concern when Chuck said that. Yeah.
What, your wife listening to this podcast specifically, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, that was the first thing I was going to do once we'd finished was make sure she got it in her ears.
Sit down. Yeah, but enough about your private life.
Can't stop with the innuendo.
Yeah, no, this will be a dangerous game otherwise, and then your wife definitely won't listen. Not that she ever has before. We will start as ever, and I will do my best in my very best Oscar ways to do our famous segment, rapid fire news. Our top story this evening, the Premier League has announced that 68% of all Premier League players have now had both doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, with 81% having at least one jab. This comes obviously after big pushes on social media about how low the percentages are in the Premier League of professional sportsmen and uptaking this. So it's got to be a good thing, right, gents?
I'm still surprised it's that low, to be honest. I mean, I saw a report earlier that said, only a few months ago it was down at, I think, 40%. I suppose they've got their own individual bubbles and they're operating in a slightly different world. But yeah, still a little bit surprising that it's that low. But yeah, obviously the closer we can get to 100 and the quicker, the better for all concerned.
Definitely. I mean, it is at least heartening that, did you say 81 had their first dose?
Yeah, so 81% first dose.
So presumably there's an intention to continue with and have the second dose. That's not an anti-vaxxer sentiment if you're having the first dose. So hopefully they'll be able to get. It's a bit tardy, but hopefully they'll be able to get up to decent levels soon. I mean, it'd be nice to get close to 100, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you do wonder what doesn't get necessarily submitted in these is the age profile of the players they're including. Like, are they including, some clubs where potentially their ages they wouldn't have been offered the vaccines in time? I know there was Callum Robinson who, he was coming out even though he'd contracted COVID twice, saying he wasn't going to be vaccinated, which kind of ran in tandem to Klopp saying 99% of the Liverpool squad had been vaccinated, which, considering there's not 100 of them, makes me think which player isn't there. But, I mean, it's about national average. National average for 2 doses between the ages of 18 and 36 is knocking on about 60-odd% anyway. So, at least it's...
Not round near me. Jesus. I think Peterborough is pushing up the national average of cases at the minute. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but asbestos doesn't cure all. That's the problem with Peterborough.
There's many problems. Yeah.
This is it. Oh, speaking of posh, we haven't done Posh Island for a little bit.
There's a fucking good reason and all.
Okay, there we go. 23rd in the league.
Only kept off the bottom by Derby's points reduction.
And it all started so well.
Well, define well, Jeff.
I just feel there was some sort of level of positivity coming from Peterborough in the early parts of the season. Maybe it was just one episode.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it might have been, Yeah. There's been no positivity, certainly not from the chairman, who's getting increasingly more irate on Instagram, which is always a joy.
You mean, is it not just on his podcast, The Inside Story, / Darren McAntony, The Real
The
Quiz,
Hard Truth,
featuring Sue Cook, or whatever it's called?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Oscar would describe that as like the very definition of a boomer podcast, wouldn't he? Just like his picture with him folded arms, The Hard Truth with Darren McAntony. Fucking hell.
Well then, speaking of hard truths, in a way, I guess I'm not great at these links. Our next story: Premier League clubs have voted to block sponsorship deals linked to new owners. There was obviously a vote of all 20 teams. 2 of them were in favour of allowing owner-linked sponsorship. Guess on the 2, Newcastle, Man City, with 18 other clubs voting in favour to ban that. Obviously, this is after the...
What could have precipitated this vote?
I wonder, could it be definitely not the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia buying a team?
Was it not that Man City... They didn't vote for it, did they? Didn't they abstain from voting at all?
Sure, why not? Oh, yeah, no, Jeff, you're absolutely right. Newcastle wanted to keep it. Man City abstained. Probably thought it was best keep your nose to dry on this one.
Just the sort of river they don't want to wade in with their shit-covered boots.
No.
Absolutely.
This is it. Yeah, obviously this comes... City famously had the Etihad sponsorship of the stadium, the Etihad-owned Etihad Stadium, for in a 400 million deal, which was obviously cleared due to administrative errors on UEFA's part. But does it feel a bit like sour grapes? People shitting themselves, worrying like, what if Newcastle come in and we can't just get 3 points every week?
It also doesn't. It doesn't matter. They will find another way to. I mean, is this because of FFP that they aren't allowed to? Load money onto the club via sponsorship? Well, they'll find other ways to do it. This is not a thing that's going to just stop and go, oh, no, really? Oh, we'll call it off then. Knock it on the head if we can't do some dodgy sponsorship deal. They'll do whatever they want to find a way to get through FFP.
I guess the theory is the other ways would need to be more creative. And possibly then easier to uncover if there's any sort of desire, which is very unlikely from UEFA, to administer any sort of FFP punishments. But yeah, I think because because FFP works on a rolling 3-year kind of deal, they're currently in profit, but they'd need to continue to uphold that profit kind of as time goes on.
Like, none of it fucking matters, does it?
It doesn't, does it? Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's been done to death about this deal, but the silence from the actual league is absolutely deafening. And the fact that, everyone criticised people on Sky Sports and whomever, whether it's Jamie Carragher's links to Rubin, one of the part owners, or whatever, like, these shouldn't be the people that are fucking commenting on it ultimately and being the ones who are the voice of this deal, having to defend whether or not it's morally just. Like, the Premier League have come out and said, we've received legally binding assurances that the Saudi state would not control the club. They've received a fucking bung, is what they've received. Like, it's cash and money talks. Let's face it, that's what it is.
Yeah, it'd be pretty easy to publish this evidence that suddenly came to light once the beIN Sports thing had been cleared up. That happened very similar times. It'd be very easy to put out this evidence, wouldn't it?
Well, and it's not like they waited any significant length of time since the beIN Sports deal was concluded before it all kind of got wrapped up. It was on the same day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was about 37 minutes later, probably.
It's so ridiculously transparent.
How long does it take to send a fax? That's what it is?
I don't know.
Facts.
They still do that. That's how they still do deals, isn't it?
That's how all transfers are done. So it's got to be done with clubs like that, surely. Just to imagine, the Saudi government just crowded around the fax machine going, has Mike Ashley done it? Has he signed it and sent it back? He's going running around Sports Direct offices trying to find a fax machine.
Yeah, and let's face it, Ashley has not invested in tech beyond the fax machine. He's too busy saving British Home Store.
Yeah. And
selling giant mugs. Speaking of giant mugs, England have been given a one-match stadium ban following unrest at the Euro 2020 final. We all obviously saw the scenes, which were to do with fans charging through the gates, rushing into the stadiums, fights, all these kind of things. The FA has been fined €100,000 for the lack of order and discipline inside and around the stadium. Let's face it, do we think this is, fair enough? I believe that there should be a punishment, but do you think it does anything? I mean, it's working wonders for racism, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it just? I think it's one of them things where you can't get upset about other countries' misbehaviour. And we always focus on racism, so you can't equate the two, here, because it's not the same. But then, a lot of families and stuff were reporting that they were feeling, scared on the day, which is not how you want to be. So, we can't get all high and mighty about one thing, is what I'm saying, and then not high and mighty about the other just because we're involved. I think a one-match stadium ban and a fine is absolutely fair. It could have been a lot harsher, to be honest. I think there's one suspended as well. But
whatever that means. We banned you for a match. I suspended for 2 years.
If we do it again, then we get another one. Well, right. Yeah, I'd expect that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. But so you're going to get one match in Wembley being deserted. It's not a good look, when you're looking to put together a World Cup bid, as I assume we always are. So yeah, I think it's sort of fair and reasonable. It seems about right. English fans, don't seem to be able to contain themselves in these situations. But we could have predicted this, couldn't we? England, as in what I'm saying is the security in the policing situation was terrible on the day.
Yeah, but that's the thing. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Jeff, but at what point does it, you've got a load of stewards in the stadium on whatever they're on, they're not going to fucking stop them. So at what point should it be the Met, as opposed to the FA getting the blame for this?
Well, and that was going to be my question is, who is responsible for the organisation of the stewarding on the day? Is it the Met, or does that come from the FA with guidelines? I genuinely don't know.
I'm pretty sure it's a joint effort between the FA and the Met Police and that. And usually these sorts of security things, especially for something like the Euros final, these things get signed off from UEFA, who are the people who are now punishing us. So it's sort of, the security plan will have been signed off, but you just get, so many fans without tickets getting so close to the stadium.
Well, they estimated that day that there were 250,000 people in and around the stadium. 250,000 because of people going there to be part of the atmosphere, as well as, because there are obviously the good people that just paid for their ticket and wanted to go and enjoy the game, as is their want. But then you get a load of absolute pricks. Now, you wonder, now obviously the FA have to pay the price. And now, of course, comparing it to the racism is agreed. Yeah. It's just completely different things. It's apples to oranges. But banning people from the stadium because of the actions of people who never had tickets is a bit interesting. Different to having fans literally in the stadium. Those are the ones who have racism. You know what I mean? I can equate the two a bit better. Obviously, 100% we deserve to be punished. That it's just disgusting, and on an international stage, to not do something a bit is ridiculous. I just think it's just a bit of an odd one that the FA are responsible for what happens in the stadium, sure, but this didn't happen in the stadium.
I guess then, what would an appropriate punishment be if it's not to the organisation and the team that plays under them?
We get Sven back.
Yeah, we have to give Allardyce his contract back.
Yes, 100% England record. Let's go. The greatest manager
in England's history who can scull pints of wine.
You just got to follow the stats, haven't you?
You just got to guys, just look at the stats. Just look at the stats, Mr. 100%. I wish I could be him. Never mind. And to round us off is the beginning of our new segment.
Yeah, I was waiting to hear his name. That's all, but fine.
Press the button. Press the fucking button. Doctor, give me the news. Yes, that's right. Dr. Marcus Rashford. Naked player again if you want. Thank you. That's up in the runtime. Has been told by manager, quote unquote, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that he needs to prioritise his football.
Read the room.
This is following Marcus Rashford recovering from a surgery that he took. Meanwhile, he was feeding kids, and the reason for the surgery was because for a whole year he played in absolute pain in order to carry that fucking jobber. Might have buried the lead with that one and how I feel, but how are you thinking about what Ole has said, Jeff?
It's so out of touch with everything else that anybody is saying, and it's almost a little bit of a playbook from Alex Ferguson himself. How else can I distract from the failures of this team and my role in that? One of the quotes was, he's had time to reflect. What he's done off the pitch because he's done some fantastic things, but now he needs to maybe prioritise on his football because he's got a challenge on his hands here at Manchester United, and he had a challenge on his hands to play for England. It's like, just shut the fuck up.
I think it's pretty succinct. Like, how can you be? I mean, you said it, Ian. Like, read the fucking room. Don't be. I mean, you're awful at your job. So telling him to prioritise football is ridiculous, especially because, and I mean, we'll link this because we will talk about how garbage Man United were in their match against Leicester. But like, he came on as a sub and scored pretty soon afterwards. So yeah, I'd say he's pretty good at football and feeding kids and getting multiple doctorates and being involved in the fight against racism, and being told to ignore that publicly by your manager, a fucking white manager as well. Like, just read the room on so many levels.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that actually. Yeah, that's not a good look, is it?
Like, if we've seen
this
fans,
is Marcus Alonso plus.
Yeah, like, oh no, this is the gesture we're going for. You're a fucking wow. I really think that Ole should prioritise his football. To be honest, and we don't have to talk about it much because we do hate that team, sorry. But we are going to start here with just a little bit of time on our first fixture, which is Leicester 4, Manchester United 2. Leicester winning the XG battle here 3.1 to 1.3. Now, considering Leicester recently have been a team to get at, like, that's a comprehensive dismantling of... Well, I mean, they're about as structurally sound as IKEA furniture at this point, I think.
I think that's doing a disservice to IKEA furniture because, as you say, structurally, Man United are just all over the place. There's so much space between the defence, midfield, attack, let's call them the shelves of the IKEA furniture. I don't know. But anyway, it's really, really poor. And I think it's... Leicester, who, like you say, aren't in great shakes themselves at the minute, will have come to this game and thinking, home game against Man United, we can get at them at the minute. This is not... The fear factor just is non-existent with Man United at the minute, isn't it? And, Brendan Rodgers, you can say a lot about him, but I think he can generally motivate a team. And fucking hell, they looked motivated, didn't they? Leicester looked... like they were just happy to get at Man United immediately. No worries at all. No fear at all. And they were just cutting through them at times. I mean, it was very, very poor from Man United. I don't know how good it was from Leicester, but it was very, very poor from Man United.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of the two. There was, if you look at it kind of structurally, and I know the central defensive midfielders, whoever they are, whether it's Matic, Fred, McTominay, Pogba, whoever plays in that too, they often get criticised, and the common thing is Man United needed a new DM, and they do, to be fair. But it's also really difficult for whoever's playing there when the front four are so out of shape, or trying to cover for the guy up front who doesn't move, and therefore they're pulled out of position, and then the two defensive midfielders are either being dragged horizontally or vertically, depending on whether it's being played through the gap out wide or through the centre of the pitch, and they're covering so much ground because the shape of the team is non-existent. And then all of a sudden you're at the back four, and if you're going to give up that many chances, especially to quality players as Leicester have in this example, then you're going to be punished. I mean, Maguire was absolutely disgusting. Let's focus on that for a minute.
Awful. And I'm sure Leicester fans standing there were going, brilliant, we got 80 million for him. And we've always said about Leicester's recruitment that they never look like they miss the player that they sell, and they'd be so happy with that. And I think you're exactly right, Jeff, that no matter what, whomever plays in that, the holding midfielder position is fucked, because in this situation, you've got Pogba who wants to go forward. Sancho, I mean, he's getting pelters, but he's come into a team that isn't coached, that doesn't have a format, that we've said for God knows how long rely on individual moments of brilliance. And I don't know whether to be happy or frustrated that I'm seeing now more and more in the mainstream kind of match of the days and those kind of things, that they're literally saying exactly that. All of a sudden, there seems to have been a key change on who Ole is, and that he's not a good manager because he's not managing this team. It's just go out and do whatever. And I think the fact that they've brought in, just because they could this year, one of, quote unquote, the greatest players in the history of football, and now it's exposing him even more that, oh shit, you're just not doing anything. And so I think Sancho making a bad start to the season is because he's a young player that needs to be told probably what to do, and expect his team to have a cogent system around him that he can look for that pass. Because funnily enough, he could do it really well at Dortmund with Erling Haaland there and the rest of that system, because they're a well-drilled team. And this United team, the defence is always under so much pressure because they're having to defend for their fucking lives all the time, or they're Maguire, who just looks like he's out for a picnic, and as the turning circle of the Titanic, that they're just, it's never going to be successful. And I'm here for it. I just don't want Ole to get fired.
No one wants that. No one wants that. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right about the mainstream media catching up on what quite a few of us, and I talk about us meaning people in the Slack on our Patreon and us and a couple of other smaller podcasts that I listen to, that weren't just wholesale accepting this "he who must not be named" hype. So like you say, the Ole thing, they seem to finally be catching up on that. Fucking dickhead from Portugal, they're finally catching up on. He does no pressing whatsoever. No. We said that he's not going to do any of that because of his age and the fact he's never really done it anyway. When you've got him and Sancho, who is, a super attacking player, and exactly what you said, when he was at Dortmund, where they pressed constantly, he was able to be that attacking player because a lot of the pressing was being done from the front anyway. So they would just instantly be on any teams who were trying to counter. So it's just they're nowhere near. They're nowhere near with the players they've got, and that's insane to me.
But also, I think there is the point about the lack of pressing coming from the top of the pitch and how that impacts then the rest of the team out of possession. But there is also a big problem when they're in possession. They are completely unable to break down a team or create high quality chances unless they're on the counter attack.
But they don't press enough to get a counter. This is the thing. It's just play passively moves to them at some point, and then there's no energy.
But this is why they tend to perform well in the games against the other. Well, I'm not going to say Big Six, but the other well-renowned teams, because those teams do dominate possession and they're forced to drop back, and then they are kind of given those opportunities on the break. When they're in possession against any sort of team that wants to sit deep or put a low block in place, they don't have a clue, and it does rely on and they keep getting away with it because they have got a lot of good players. but there's no sense of strategy around kind of overloading one side, targeting a particular fullback or centre back, having people drop deep with runners going beyond. There's nothing. It's just well, who's going to put one in from 30 yards?
Yeah, well, basically
Greenwood's been having a lot of fucking goes, isn't he? Jesus Christ!
There were some lovely goals in this game. I mean, Greenwood's, it was an absolute slap, and it's probably the only way he's going to get a goal at the minute because no one's working their way into the box. Yeah. And I feel like we're doing a bit of disservice to Leicester here because, like we said before, they've been on a bad run of form. Iheanacho getting starts again has been key, I think, into them again pressing from the front and winning that ball back from Maguire to then give it to Tielemans, who I don't even know how you describe it. Like he just
When you first saw that, did you think it was a cross? Because on the replays, I thought no, he's meant that, but at the first viewing, I thought, oh, you lucky bugger.
I think you always will with first viewing, but it was one of those ones where like. Then you watched it a second time and instantly it was like, no, he meant it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it wasn't like I don't think there's an ongoing debate about it. He just, a caressed lob. Just like, surreptitious.
I would agree with you, Jeff, as well, if it wasn't Tielemans, because I think he always fancies himself in that situation to do something like that. Mm-hmm. He's got that slight arrogant streak that you need, I think, to do things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they just pounded him afterwards. I mean, Marcus Rashford, Dr. Marcus Rashford. There we go.
Shit! Fucking hell!
Did score a lovely breakaway goal, showing that he was prioritising his football at the time that he was stood on a fucking football pitch.
And just to confirm, that was a breakaway goal. Just to clarify that, we're not just rambling aimlessly to beat on United. The two goals they got in this game were a long-range screamer and a breakaway goal.
Yeah, you could say individual moments of brilliance. And then the fact that it's always good when you're watching like Match of the Day and you see the kickoff after a goal because you're like, why are they showing the kickoff directly after a goal? And 15 seconds later, Jamie Vardy. That's why you're showing it. Just to go 3-2, instant reply. Patson Daka scoring his first goal, getting a bit of luck, but showing quick feet to sort himself out. Absolutely lovely stuff from Leicester. Anyway, let's move on and let's give old Jeffy a time to shine, shall we? And can be quite one of us especially can be quite harsh on your team, Tottenham Hotspur, but you rampantly ran away winners against the richest club in world football. Newcastle 2, Tottenham 3, and a comprehensive 0.4 to 1.6 XG. Jeff, I mean, the floor is kind of yours here, buddy. How are you feeling about this game? How are you feeling about Tottenham this season? What are kind of your tepid to hot takes?
Oh, shit. Clear my throat. Ready
Let's get ready.
No searing hot takes. I think it's been an interesting start under Nuno, and I think the last two games we're finally starting to see some sort of coherent strategy and kind of an understanding of the formation and the players and who's going to be playing together and how it best works. I think the first few games, the first 3 1-0 wins, I don't think there was any no one was getting ahead of themselves having watched the performances. The wins were great, but we all saw the next couple of games coming. I think the Arsenal game was horrendous.
I think you're skipping a game there, Jeff. I think you're skipping a game.
No, I don't think I am.
No. Go ahead to the Arsenal game. Yep.
No, I think the thing is the Palace game was one thing, but the Palace game we were outplayed and outfought. The Arsenal game, it was like we weren't even there.
Right.
And that was fortunately the last time we saw the 4-3-3. Well, hopefully it will be the last time we see it. And it was also the kind of the game where I think Skip came on at half time and hasn't left the pitch since, and we're a much better team with him on. Him and Højbjerg have got a nice partnership building there, and it allows the four in front of them to go off and do their business without kind of worrying what's happening behind them, because those two are so solid. I think one thing I really, really wanted to see come into this season was the re-emergence of Dele Alli. Unfortunately, right now, we're just a much better team with him on the bench. I really love Dele, and I want it to work for him, but his best position doesn't seem to really exist anymore. Certainly not in this team or in this formation or system. And on top of that, Ndombele has gone from, the lazy, overweight, moments of sparkle, but lots of moments of frustration as well. And he's growing and growing with each game. Sunday was the first 90 minutes he's completed in the league, which is great to see.
Okay.
I think, a lot of the time you get to 65, 70 minutes and you can see him starting to blow, and he might do one last sprint to close someone down or one last pressure, and you think, yeah, he's off now. But he was still chasing and pressing in injury time on Sunday, which is great to see. Because on the ball, he's magical. His strength, his balance, his awareness. He's got a silky touch, which reminds me of Berbatov in many ways. And it was probably his best game for Tottenham, but it was probably also Kane's best game this season. Not just for the goal and the assist. I mean, lovely finish for the goal. Mm-hmm. But his general play, he was still linking play a little bit from deep, but he didn't need to as much because of Ndombele's presence. You can tell when Kane starts to spray passes around that he's feeling it. And he sprayed some beautiful passes around on Sunday. Yeah,
it did look like, and he was. It wasn't just that he was, obviously, because you can drop deep and remain there, but he was really busting a gut and linking up well. I think the whole front four was much more, watching the highlights. It looked a hell of a lot more coherent, and I don't know if that's because of the change of formation. I mean, Ndombele, I think it kind of went under the radar a bit because of all the Kane stuff, but he was itching for a move as well, right?
Well, I think both parties were. There was one stage where both parties would have been happy to move on and accept it as a failed experiment, but fortunately, that's not been the case. And he's obviously put in the effort, behind the scenes, and Nuno seemingly has found a way to get the best out of him. I don't want him playing in the pivot. There's no kind of need for him to be there. Get him further forward, get him kind of making things happen. And I think that was our best 11 that we played in. And I think the really interesting point for me was that there was no subs made by Nuno. And it was a strong bench. Lo Celso, Dele, Bergwijn was back from injury, and then kind of a couple of solid defenders. But I think it was really interesting that he wanted to give that 11 as much time on the pitch together as possible. And I think that's probably a sign of things to come. I don't see that 11 changing very often now.
Right. I mean, the subs thing doesn't necessarily surprise me because he is the Portuguese Hodgson, but it is. Oh, that hurts a little bit. But to see, but I think you're right, and you can only play who's in front of you, and for all the glitz and glamour. And obviously, the really classy fans choosing to bring in Saudi Arabian flags and putting black and white towels on over their heads and stuff like that. Seeing them depressed at the end of the game didn't fill me with joy. Obviously, totally did.
And let's not forget the opposition were pretty terrible. We're not going to play Newcastle every week. This weekend's game against West Ham will be a real test. They're a very good team. Mm-hmm. That'll be a much better indicator of kind of where we are and how we're progressing. But signs are positive. There's no one's getting carried away. I'm certainly not. But it feels all right at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, if we go to pre-season, obviously you entered the Predictor League and you had Tottenham as fifth. I think as a lot of people do. Obviously, Tottenham are fifth now.
Are they? Blimey. The only reason I react like that is because obviously the narrative this season, maybe we listen to Oscar too much, has been that Spurs have not been good. I haven't had a look at the Premier League table before we start recording, and maybe surprised by that. Okay.
I mean, I think if you look at any of the kind of the metrics attacking or defensive wise, we're pretty low down on all of them. But yeah, keep pulling results out of the bag.
Where do you think, you're going to... What would you say is acceptable now based on how you are this season? What your kind of expectations or top line is that you would love?
I mean, I think, obviously the ambition has to be to get back into the top four, but being realistic, I don't know if that's possible. The top three, I think, look after themselves, and then it's probably any number of half a dozen teams battling for that fourth spot.
Arsenal? Do you consider Arsenal there?
No.
No Totteringham's Day this year, do you don't think?
When was the last one?
Jesus. I mean, I had no idea, but yeah, they're fucking garbage.
Yeah, no, I think the aim has to be fourth. I would be more than happy with fifth. Sixth would be okay. Below that, you're then moving into the realms of disappointment.
Yeah, and I think, is Harry Kane back now after one goal in the Premier League? After, I think he scored, that's actually his 13th goal this season, but they've all been in the conference, and which sounds fun, and against like Andorra and stuff. So do you think from here his season kind of begins proper, or is it, one swallow doesn't make a summer at the minute?
Well, I think that's always true, but I think the one thing, if you look back at, there's two things. If you look at Kane historically, all right, he has scored for country and kind of cup competitions, etc. But he is usually a slow starter to the season. The second point being, he may have quiet spells, and he certainly had one at the beginning of this season. They don't tend to last very long. There's no guarantees in life, but the way he looked on Sunday, the passes he was making, don't be surprised if he scores 10 in the next 12.
Okay. So get him in your fantasy team? Is that what you're saying? Silence. So you're not going that far yet? No, it's always good to see,
I'll probably hold off on that.
Okay.
For a few weeks.
The thing is with Kane as well, we've said it before, the guy has just never had a break. And as in a
none of these players have.
Time, yeah, well, exactly. Time to let his body recover, Well, I mean, a lot of people were saying, obviously, because there was, the talk of Kane moving on, that his head's gone. I mean, he might have just needed what everyone else had with the pre-season. England have never gone that deep in a tournament. He's not had a break, and he's not got the most robust of bodies to deal with injuries, has he? So, it might just be the slow start just got a bit elongated this season. Well, we'll see.
And it goes back as well to the players around him and the system that was being played. I think I saw some early chatter after 4 or 5 games of what's Kane doing, and Kane's form's all over the place, and I'm thinking, well, he's not getting the ball. The system that we're playing and the players that are playing, it's not coherent. We're not building any attacks, so yeah, he's not involved. But that's not always on him. There's other factors that have to help with that.
I think with Nuno taking the step up as well, I thought, I don't know, maybe the first 3 1-0 wins built expectation, perhaps, because there was, there've been no media giving a new manager a chance with Nuno, has there? It's been sort of straight on, Spurs are in crisis, like straight away. And it's a weird one, because I think usually a manager, especially a manager the media like Nuno, might have been given a touch more time before the media went for the jugular, which hasn't happened yet. I'm not saying they've gone for the jugular.
Yeah, but that doesn't help. That's the Kane saga that they wanted to push more than Nuno.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
There are just some things just take time. We've got Romero's come in, him and Dyer are trying to form a new partnership. Mm-hmm. You've got a new fullbacks come in, a new pair of defensive midfielders kind of starting to play together. Mora started the season well, then went out injured. There's international, breaks and travel, and it's a bit of a shit show at the start of the season. So I think it takes a few games to get into the swing of things.
It's a bit of a shit show for a lot of teams. I mean, but something I didn't bother mentioning in news because I didn't want to warrant talking about it is FIFA have said today that from 2026 we're doing World Cups every 2 years. That's the plan. So, I mean, that's going to be good. I don't understand
any of that. And also, having all this disjointedness, I don't understand why, if they want football to be a spectacle, why you don't keep all these players together as much as possible. Like, why, we've had 2 international breaks already. We've got a 3rd in November. We've got a 4th in January. We've got a plan for a World Cup in fucking December of next year. There's going to discourse, like, how is any of this going to be good for football, for fans, for the players especially? Like, and then, I think everyone has the same. Nuno doesn't get his team to work with. Klopp has players travelling all around and deals with, quarantines and XYZ. Every club has had it. And it just doesn't, none of it seems to fit or make it seem like, in any way, we're progressing the game. Obviously, shout out Eric Dyer for a cheeky own goal. Which I couldn't even understand what he was planning with the header in the first place, to then knee it in. But obviously, John Joe Shelvey had outdone himself within 23 minutes of coming on.
2
yellow cards.
I'll said it before and I'll say it again. Is it fair to say that he's got that in him and he is that sort of player?
Just one other thing, props to Eric Dyer and also Sergio.
Yes,
absolutely.
For the swift noticing and notification of officials to the Newcastle fan, who I think is kind of okay or certainly on the mend by all reports.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, was stable and responsive in hospital as of last hearing. And I think 100% right. It shows.
Good to see.
Absolutely, that's what's important. Like, the referee did stop the game for that. The correct medical attention could happen, and I think it's an incredibly honourable and lovely thing to see, and kind of humanises the whole thing, especially when it's cast against the current circus that's going on around Newcastle United. Getting to see some decency from the stands. Right, let's talk about... thanks for that, Jeff. That's lovely to hear Tottenham without someone just going, "Oh, fucking shit, man." Hurricane, sell Hurricane, mate. Sell Hurricane.
Where's Oscar from?
Whoa, it's like he's in the room. So let's talk about a team that fills Oscar with the absolute willies all over his face, neck and chest. The absolute juggernaut at the minute that is Liverpool FC. I mean, it was only Watford, granted. 0 for Watford, as we all know. 5 for Liverpool. Ranieri has sent an apology to Jurgen Klopp's mother. And an XG of 0.5 to 3.6. I mean, what a fantastic performance from a bunch of over-the-hill forwards.
Yeah, we really must keep reminding Oscar of that wherever possible. But they were just, the hat tricks were all tap-ins though, weren't they? Come on. What a brilliant performance. I just love seeing old Firm Bobby's face. He's so happy whenever it all goes his way. It's just a happy, smiling face, just delightful, makes me happy. Everything about this performance made me happy because it was Watford. No, actually, that's not true because I do feel a little bit sorry for Ranieri.
Why?
I just, because he's a lovely man.
Booked himself in the best payoff in 2 months. He's gonna have Christmas off, for fuck's sake, and he's gonna have at least 7 million quid to enjoy it with. Like, I feel sorry for him.
Okay, maybe not, but the post-match was hilarious when he was like, "Oh, maybe some of the players were a little nervous, wanted to impress the new manager." It's like, well, it's a funny fucking way of showing it because this wasn't players being overzealous and pushing forward where they shouldn't do and leaving gaps because they're trying to impress their manager with their attacking play. They just didn't turn up at all. I mean, it was a couple of weeks ago. Adam said about Mari basically being retired by someone and then Milner being essentially retired by someone. I mean, Salah retired Cathcart, Rose.
Danny Rose.
I mean, anyone else? Because fuck me, he was just going through them like they weren't there. It was beautiful to watch. It really was. Something's happened with Salah. I mean, there's another one who...
Pass into Mane?
Well, what a pass. What a pass to Mane. I mean, unbelievable. But he had like 6 or 7 weeks off before the season started. You know, he didn't go and play in a tournament. He didn't go to the Olympics, as was possibly mooted. And doesn't it show that he's well rested and he just looks unplayable at the minute. And this was a Watford team who I think struggle against mid-table Premier League teams. So, good Lord, they just got absolutely eviscerated, didn't they?
Yeah, he's just a joy to watch at the moment, Salah. I really want to hate him because he plays for Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just really difficult to. And I agree with Firmino as well. Like, when he scores his... You know, I don't understand his celebrations or what he's trying to do or communicate to the fans, but it's just so full of joy. It's lovely to see. Was it their third or their fourth goal? It was such beautiful football where kind of Milner went kind of past the ball round to the left and then overlapped and fizzed it in for Firmino to tap it in. But that was actually the
second. That was the second.
That was only the second goal.
All easy to mix up, of course, but
it was just such a brilliant goal. You know, regardless of the inferior opposition.
Yeah, I think it was goals being scored from multiple different avenues, all different players, well played. Like you had that beautiful outside of the foot pass from Salah, from Mane. Obviously, Salah's highlight of retiring 5 Watford defenders. The second he sat down, insert irrelevant Watford player here.
Fair enough.
And cut back onto his left foot. You're like, oh, that's a goal. There's the goal. Firmino, yeah, they were tap-ins, but they were well-worked plays, like you said, Jeff.
I was being facetious.
Milner playing some beautiful football down the left and linking up well. It's just... This is fun Liverpool. This is fun football. This is the kind of stuff that we want to see. And yeah, it may be scary for certain people who are worried because their team are desperately hanging on at the top of the league. But, it just for us, they've scored 22 goals off 21.5 XG. They are bang on. Salah's, on 11 goal involvements in 8 games.
Well, yeah, this is it. I'm coming round, because it's impossible not to, I'm coming round to Oscar's way of thinking that they're incredibly scary this season, because the fact they've got, Virgil back and that, it affects more than just the defence, doesn't it? Because they are able to then press like they couldn't before. They're able to have a bit of confidence in their backline and not worry so much when moving forward. And when you've got Salah in that form, so I think his goal involvements or expected goal involvements, I can't remember which one it is actually, whether it's real life or expected, but they're currently running at nearly double what they were last season per 90, and still way higher than they were in their title winning season. Now, he's probably not going to keep it up as it is at the minute, because that would lead to an insane season. But
he has to.
He has to. But it's not like it's just Salah. Mane's low-key having a really good season. When you got Jota, as we've spoken about before, Oscar was saying about how much Jota scares him. And Firmino, they can just rotate that position. They can rotate any of those 4, really, and still have an amazing front line. It's just quite scary. I still think over the course of a season, depth might be a problem, and they might come to regret getting rid of Wijnaldum or letting Wijnaldum go. But yeah, I'm coming round to Oscar's way of thinking at the minute. Even though it's Watford, that was such a great performance. It's hard not to be incredibly impressed.
What happens first? Does Salah get to 20 goals, or does Ranieri get fired?
When's the return fixture? 20 goals in a game.
So one question I have then. There was, and again, I can't remember which goal it was. I don't know if it was, I think it was his hat-trick goal maybe. The ball that was played through from Robertson, Salah's offside at the back post, defender slides in, Foster makes a save, Firmino taps it in. Now, it wasn't given as offside because, as the commentator said, Salah wasn't involved in that phase of the game. I'm not so sure on that, because if he's not there, the defender isn't sliding in, and making the interception that gives it to Foster. So I just think it's an interesting discussion point. Like, technically, he's not offside, but it kind of is.
Yeah, it's an awkward one, isn't it? It kind of feeds into is a player by simply being in the goalkeeper's vision. Are they affecting play? Is it like in, we didn't cover it, but the Nations League final, Eric Garcia trying to intercept a ball and Mbappe running through who was offside, then going through, like, at what point is there a cut-off? And I think it's kind of the part of football that you can't really make a binary decision at that point. I don't know, because you can say, like, well, if this person isn't here and there and there. I mean, you're right, it warrants talking about, of course.
I agree, there can't be a hard and fast rule for it, but then that's exactly it. There's all aspects of, decision making in refereeing have some level of subjectivity. That's, that is what happens. And if we're supposed to judge about whether a player is impeding a goalkeeper's view, as you brought up there, Chuck, then why can't we make a judgment about whether a player is interfering with play by making a run? Because how is Cathcart, and I think it was him, how is he supposed to know that Salah was offside at the point the ball was played? He has to try and intercept that ball, and he got unlucky. And he can't. Imagine if he just stood, put his hands up, stood up and let it go through, going, oh, well, I know Salah's offside. And he turned out he wasn't. Because there was, I can't remember what other goal it was this week. Oh, no, of course, it was Kane's goal.
Yeah, Kane's goal, yeah.
Yeah, where, like, first look, you go, offside. Kane thought he was offside. He didn't even really celebrate,
No.
And then you get it back and you go, oh, fuck, no, he was being played on. So how can you possibly expect the Watford defender to know that and then let that go through and then just assume that it's going to be offside? So if you're going to have subjectivity in things like strikers, getting in the way of goalkeepers' view, then I think you can make a call on this. It's tricky because you don't want to go back to the days where any player is offside, even if they're in near the corner flag or whatever, because obviously that is ridiculous. But if you're going to accept a level of subjectivity, then I don't know. It's these decisions seem wrong.
I think there are interesting lines, and I think I'm more than happy for quite a lot of people listening to think I'm a dinosaur for having this opinion. But like,
you're among good company with Ian, right?
I was going to say it'd be nice for someone else to be thought up like that.
Just to clarify, this is Jeff talking, not Ian.
Because Oscar's brother will think you're all the same people.
He thinks this is an extended monologue.
But there are examples where you might have a striker is 30 yards offside, right? Just kind of milling about on the edge of the box, and the ball breaks down the left-hand side, for example, nowhere near the player, but the winger runs onto it, crosses it, passes the ball across to him, and there's no defenders anywhere near him because he was standing so far offside. And he's then, clear on goal, 15 yards out or whatever. He's only in that position because he was offside. So there are different phases to that play, but in my mind, that shouldn't be happening because there's a real advantage being taken there. And you can say they're being clever, and that's absolutely fine. And they're just playing to the rules that are in front of them. But that's a direct advantage gained from being in an offside position. Like in my mind, I'm like, well, no, I don't like it.
See, I don't know. I've always thought personally, I don't know whether it's because I spent a lot of years playing rugby, and obviously, like if you're offside in rugby, once like your first man clears you, or the person who like. Let's say if a player kicks the ball forward and you're in front of them, you're offside until the player who kicks it runs in front of you, and then you can make your attempt to run after the ball or whatever, because if you affect play then, it's nothing. I've kind of always been of the mind that, like, if we're tweaking with offside rules, like, why can't that happen? Like, you're in an offside position, you're not going for the play, and let's say someone plays the ball over the top, and then as the defenders are running back to it, once the defender runs past you, you can then go and do it.
Yeah, but that's not how it's implemented.
No, of course not. And I think it's interesting because it's a good point, Jeff, that like, that player just shouldn't really have been there. But then can we say really how tactics should be? Do we modify the laws? Because it's all about exploits and how you can find ways. And
little advantages and all those kind of things, you know? It's literally, I think it's a bit weird that we're still fine with a goalkeeper being there and players literally standing on top of him. Like, and then, you know, the play going on and that not being a foul on the goalkeeper when it's just the only reason you're there is to obstruct a player, for example. Notably, it happened to great effect with Burnley against Brighton when Neil Maupay didn't get a foul against him because all he was doing was watching Tarkowski the whole time and just trying to block him. And Tarkowski just ran fucking through him. And regardless of the fact that's Brighton and I hate Neil Maupay, like that was, I really enjoyed seeing that in the game and being allowed to be played. So, you know, it's just at what point do you kind of say, because your intention is still to play.
Goalkeepers don't need any more protection. They can do what they want on the field anyway.
Yeah, just punch everyone. Unless you're Hugo
I'm a
Lloris.
Goalkeeper. I'm just going to come out and knee someone in the back and punch him in the head. I'm a goalkeeper.
Unless it's Hugo Lloris, in which case he goes out to punches someone in the face and gets sent off. So,
well, he's more likely to punch himself in the face. He's so bad at coming for crosses.
Oh, poor guy.
I love Hugo. He's a wonderful shot stopper, but commanding his area is not in his top 5 strengths.
No, and if we're going to talk about keepers not necessarily being in command of their area, then we'll move on to the next game, which is going to be Arsenal 2, Crystal Palace 2, a 1.5 XG to 0.9 there, which was fairly, you know, still fairly even considering, especially I think the tone of the game may have meant that Palace possibly deserved more. And another absolutely sickening last kick of the game conceding. I mean, neither of them, both against Brighton and here against Arsenal, resulted in a loss. But I've got to tell you, like, that one hurt just a little bit.
4 points dropped.
4 points dropped, yes. However, if you look at it from the fact of I probably wouldn't have expected to get points from those games, it's the context. But, you know, I think the one against Brighton is Guaita's individual error. And I think us going, you know, the second we took off Edouard for Tompkins, I put in a Slack group that, like, I do not like this. I don't understand why when you have a 4-3-3, which is working really well, and you're controlling possession higher up the pitch and alleviating that defensive pressure by just having the ball elsewhere, which has been effective for us in games, why we would then switch to 3 centre-backs for the first time, shut it down, try to play like a 5-4-1. It was very, very strange. And it's kind of, you know, I don't want to seem down on it, but I think our main weakness, and it's probably one of the only Vieira mistakes he's made, because sometimes he's made subs and they've worked really, really well. And twice against Brighton and here against Arsenal, I don't think they've been the best. But set pieces and second balls and third balls, like, it's becoming a big running theme now that, like, we're quite weak on them. I mean, I fucking love this team. Like, I'm just going to say it out here. Like, it hurt, but I was over it because you look at everyone saying how much we outplayed. The fact that you had, like, Arsenal celebrating so massively about a draw like that at the Emirates. Like, we're not supposed to be that. We're you know, after our 8 games, you look at Sky Sports had the stats up that we literally have had the hardest opening fixtures. The average position of the teams we've played is 5.6 in the league. And to have average a point per game, have not lost at home, and to have only lost against Chelsea and Liverpool, 2 of arguably the best teams in the world. Like, I'm feeling good. But, I mean, you guys don't have to say a hell of a lot here, but Jeff, do you want to comment on the Arsenal side, perhaps, or anything you're feeling about Palace? Or
no, I'll be honest, I didn't catch a lot of the game on Monday night, so, you know, just highlights. But I think, echoing what you said about the system seems to just be working really nicely and the players fit in it nicely. I don't know if, you know, you've mentioned before on here about Milivojevic. You know, I don't think he adds much. I think once he's replaced that may then take you up a level. I think Michael Elise, when he came on, was just so exciting. Again, surely at some point he kind of starts ahead of AU. Surely, but yeah, overall, I the signs are all very promising. From an Arsenal standpoint, it felt, and again, I didn't see the whole game, but it felt like they had a lot of the ball and didn't necessarily do a lot with it. Was that your take?
Yeah, it kind of was like that. Arsenal weren't really doing anything for a while. I mean, they went ahead early, and I was a bit upset about that. Again, it was a terrible corner that went over the top, and we didn't follow it up well enough, or at least, Ayew overcommitted to that, and Pepe just kind of exploited the space. Guaita made a really good save there, but Aubameyang is gambling and was in a position that probably MacArthur didn't expect him to, and just kind of did quite a smart finish for what could easily be perceived as a bit of a tap-in at the back post. I think he had quite a bit to do actually there. But then the response after that for like the rest of the half was fantastic. And then obviously coming into the second half, Ayew getting a high press, and it's something that maybe Arsenal fans think is a foul. I don't give a fuck. It's football. And then falling to Benteke and getting a really nice hit. Really nice hit from outside the box. Don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck. I'll be fair over whatever you want.
Dear.
And then, like you said, Michael Elise coming on. The Edouard goal. I mean, it was fantastic that it was a high press up the pitch that won the ball back. And it was Gallagher, Olise and Edouard, three players who are new this season, have hardly played together. And I think it's just indicative of Vieira making a stamp on his team and getting that kind of imprint in, because the players all love playing for him. They've really bought into what he wants and what they're looking for.
I loved that Edouard strike.
Yeah. Oh, it was so good.
Kind of a couple of little touches, boom. Didn't look at the goal, didn't think about it too much, just focused on hitting the ball with the best contact he could. And obviously, any goal that hits the crossbar as it goes in is obviously, much better.
It's at least, I'd say it's three better. I'd say it's always three better.
It's worth three goals.
It's worth, no, not three goals. It's just three better. And obviously, understood. £50 million defender Benjamin, remember we must call him Benjamin now in the weirdest interview of all time, if you haven't seen that. Classic Jeff Shreve's journalism there. Backing off him was a bit weird, but yeah.
When I first saw it, I didn't know if he was, I saw him backing off, but I was like, well, is he trying to cut off or make the pass out wide more difficult? But then I saw it again, I was like, well, actually, he's just kind of backed off a bit too much.
I think maybe he just lost where he was, probably. And he gave him so much space that it was like, well, there's no one on the right. He's not going to, he could still tap it on his right and go out, but, he just fucking banged it through Ramsdale, which was lovely to see. But, the Lacazette hit at the end is kind of from a deflection, and so... Yeah, that's just a bit worrying.
Do you think James MacArthur should have gone for basically just kicking Saka off the ball?
What do you want me to say, mate?
He's not asked.
Proper football. Dino gonna Dino. I can't be one of those Palace fans that's wound up that Arsenal scored in the 5th minute of 4 minutes added on and were allowed to keep playing, and then also not recognise that maybe James MacArthur should have been sent off. So it's like, so what I'm taking is just the neutral stance on both. That I'm not saying MacArthur should have been sent off, and I'm not saying Arsenal didn't get extra time added on to allow them to score that goal. How about that? Does that count as being fair?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Again, not really sure what I was expecting. But what might act as an interesting segue is there was more added time added on there, but in the Brentford-Chelsea game, there was at least 2 minutes in the added on time of Chelsea players laying on the floor, and about 35 seconds of additional time to the extra time was added on. I found that interesting.
Maybe it was because they were all whinging at the referee, whoever the referee was, I can't remember. That always is quite harsh on them. And, that can kind of be our last game to touch on properly, as it were. We don't really need to say a lot here because Oscar says it all anyway. But Chelsea scraping, the champions of Europe, scraping a 1-0 win against promoted Brentford. Brentford generating 5 times the XG of Chelsea, a 1.5 to 0.3. I mean, the story here really isn't about Chelsea. It's this Brentford team, man. Like, I think the fear Oscar has about Liverpool is kind of the fear I have about Brentford at the level of team I am. My team's at, because they're so good. They shouldn't be this good. I don't know.
Well, and going back to what we said about Liverpool, they're just so much fun. Like the last. I mean, how they didn't score. I mean,
Edouard Mendy. I know, Edouard Mendy. That's how they didn't score.
Yeah, I mean, I know how they didn't score because they kind of kept on hitting the post, and Mendy made a series of great saves. But
with his face,
the last 20 minutes was just a bombardment, and it was, but not in a Wimbledon. Let's just stick all the centre backs in the box and launch it.
Like one for the teenagers there.
Yeah, it was like it was fun bombardment. It was like they just were creating chances from all different angles and all in all manner of ways. And all right, there were a lot of long throws, but part and parcel of it. But it was real good fun, and not because it was Chelsea that were up against it. It was a good game to watch.
Yeah, I think tactically they're well set up. Thomas Frank has had time to work and build this team, based on, obviously, it's heavily stats led. That's not a secret at this point. And myself especially, and I will hold my hands up and say, like, I didn't think that they could make the step up, but like they're proving everything wrong. Palace getting the 0-0 against Brentford looks like a better result each and every week.
Yeah,
because how exactly what you're saying, Jeff. They're playing fun. They know exactly what they're doing, and Mbeumo hits the post twice, one at each end. Tony is helping to link up the play really, really well. Their wing backs, or at least Rico Henry's, super attacking, and they're just pushing all the time, and not showing any fear, any deference to these teams. And when the manager's coming out and earnestly, I don't think Thomas Frank has necessarily an arrogance about him, but a real confidence and quite aware of himself and his team and what they are and who they are. And he comes out and literally, I believe him fully when he says, like, yeah, we look at that game and we just played against them and we should have won that. And they should have won that.
Well, and I think the key thing for Brentford as the season progresses will be how much the system is the key factor, and how much the players within that system are. Because inevitably there will be a few games where they have a couple of injuries, a couple of suspensions, maybe both. And at that point, I think you'll then see, okay, like I say, is it the system? Can you just slot someone else into that piece of the puzzle, and everyone knows exactly what they're doing, and it's just one for one?
I think they have that. I think they have that because so many of these players have been together for so long, and like they've already changed the style they played to come into the Premier League. They're playing far more, like we said before, like they got high pressed against Liverpool, so they just went, all right, we're just going to play it over the top of you and just play knockdowns and just be like, we're Ivan Toney going up against Virgil van Dijk, and it just not mattering. 5'10", famously now, Ivan Toney. Yeah. Which I didn't believe, and Wikipedia said he's 6'2", but the Brentford website says he's 5'10", and I don't know what to think anymore.
Well, here's another one that I saw the other day, that Kyle Walker is 5'11", or maybe even 5'10", I think 5'11", and Luke Shaw is 6'1". I would have definitely had those the other way around.
Yeah,
Luke Shaw's 6'1", so I mean, because if it all looks in proportion, he must have weighed about 18 stone at some point.
No,
surely
he actually weighs less than Kyle Walker. They said as well. Apparently,
there you go.
Walker's got them hefty calves, where he has to cut holes in his socks to fit them in.
Yeah. But just going back to Mbeumo though, and hitting the post. He's now hit the post 6 times this season. I think the next person, I think one other player's hit the post twice, and then there's a bunch of players on one. At some point, they're gonna start flying in, right?
Yeah, I think the link up that him and Tony have that's not in a. I mean, it's not big man, little man. I would say it is, but Tony's not a big man, so I don't know what it is. Like,
evidently,
he's a target man, and it explains why people said before that like he's an incredibly mobile target man, because his aerial ability and his leap is phenomenal. His strength is incredible. He's pacey. He's incredibly intelligent. Knows where it is, and that's why I think where he's made the step up. And I think rightfully, Jeff, we said about you, and obviously the step down in championship numbers is to be expected. But where he's performed really well this year is in the assists and in his link-up play, because his expected assists are much higher than his expected goals for this year. And I think that just kind of shows how much of a smart system and adaptation they've kind of made to the Premier League, the fact that they're not just relying on what they were before. I've spoken enough to get my stats up, and he's 5th in the league for expected assists on 2.5. And his XG's at 2.3, so total non-penalty goal involvements is at about 4-ish. So he's in top 10 in the league for creativity, in a promoted side that haven't necessarily had the easiest start to the season, so they're fun.
You are welcome, Brentford, for Tony. Welcome.
However vicariously you want to live. Just to kind of briefly touch on it, teams that were once fun. Again, Leeds fans, I'm going to apologise because you're clearly just fucked. Just utterly fucked.
No Rafinha, no Barney.
No Rafinha, no Bamford, no anyone. Southampton generating 11 times their XG. Really good Brighton. Another 3 points in a 0-0 draw against Norwich.
Huddersfield.
Who's that guy? Sargent? It's the American striker who tried to pass it into the net from 25 yards away. They should revoke his visa. Just get out of Norwich. Dealey is not happy. You're not getting any of the mustard. And then Everton, West Ham. West Ham continue to be West Ham in their West Ham way this year. David Moyes stinging them with a late Ogbonna. So that wraps up the fixtures. Shall we have a little Predictor League update? Do you want that?
Oh yeah, why not?
Do you want a bit of that? Oh, Predictor League. I can't do jingles and host, guys.
No worries, mate. You've done a lot of talking.
Yeah, it would cost too much otherwise. So obviously Predictor League, you all know what it's about. At the very bottom of the league, we do have 2 children. So, we won't humiliate them and scar them for life anyway. But they're on 130 and 118 points.
Good Lord.
Not good. A low score is a good score. We then move up the league. Just some kind of highlights. Oscar Dalton on 76. And the man, Jeff Pedder himself, on 76 points. Joint 32nd, mate. That's good, isn't it? Yeah, happy with that.
How many people in the league?
How many people in the league? 39. So, you're down there. You're sort of not quite Peterborough level yet. You're probably, I'd say you're about a Forest. You're about a Forest.
Harsh.
Down there, yeah. Moving slowly up the league. Ian, your spawn is in joint 26th.
Okay. Still in the family for now, then?
Yep, that Arsenal fan, what replaced me that 1 week, is in joint 22nd with producer himself, Mr. Mark Daffin. Scrolling. Ian, 13th.
Okay.
13th. I am joint 10th with my better half on 60 points. Oscar's winning, which is fucking ridiculous, out of us 3 on 58.
Oh, out of us 3.
Out of us 3. Sorry, I buried the lead there. And then there's some other people, a few others, blah, blah, blah. And then the top 3, Ruben Byman on 54. Andy Penpraise, you might know him. He's from Sutton. He's on 52. And then storming ahead, the stat man himself, the wonder from down under, Mr. Dave Mateo, on 44. So a bit of a lead there. Obviously still a long, long way to go. But there's your Predictor League update for the next 5 weeks. We want to give an extra bit of a shout out to our patrons. We've had a few updates this week, haven't we, Ian?
We have, yeah. Andy Penpraise, who I don't know if you know, he's from Sutton.
It's come up once or twice.
Yep, he's upgraded to producer level, so we've now got 4 producers. not including me. I feel like I need a better. I think I should be downgraded to editor or something now because we've got actual producers. It seems
creative assistant.
Could you be CTO?
Chief Technical Officer.
Chief COT. Chief Old Twat. Yeah, that'll do.
Well, I'm not happy. Right. Okay. Good. I'm glad. I'm happy with how that went. Yeah. Lovely. But we also have a new Patreon. I mean, we should do a fanfare for that, but the only one I've got, as you know, really long.
Yeah, I mean, you can fade it out.
Okay.
Or you can just talk over it for this time. I'll let you.
We call that a dip and cue.
I mean, it is baroquely fantastic.
It is, yeah, definitely. Mike
if you say it really quick, welcome, Mike Hauser. Now fade it up, quick. Beautiful. See,
that.
I'm nothing if not audio cueable. Yes, Mike Hauser comes on board at the stats robots level, so gets himself the Slack, the extra pods, and the statistical goodness. We've said before about we're following it with a few bets, and we are currently off £10 bets on every fixture, just over £200 up so far for the season.
Wow.
So not too shabby.
That's pretty good. They're good stats.
Yeah, good stats. Patreon.com/milesoffsidepod for more information. Before we go to fixtures, we want to give Jeff the opportunity to shine because, Jeff, you run, there's only one predictor league, but you run quite a fantastic prediction game if you want to give our some listeners that aren't in the league a bit of a sales pitch on what you do.
Thank you very much. For those of you not on the Patreon and on the Slack, firstly, what are you doing? These guys are great. The work they do is great. The Slack channel is, if Carlsberg made Slack channels, need I say more?
Always liked you, Jeff. Always liked you.
But more importantly, what I do is
fine. Yeah,
well taken. Yeah.
So I with a couple of other good friends help to run a prediction website. So there are 250. Let's kind of say that because I don't know the exact number or so. People broken out into multiple tiered leagues. So you've got Division 1, a couple of Division 2s, 4 Division 3s, etc., etc. So the pyramid.
It's a pyramid.
It's a pyramid.
Love it.
It gets the cream rises to the top the quicker, which is great. You don't have to spend a million years fighting your way through 16 divisions. There are multiple league competitions. There are Champions League style competitions based on previous season's excerpts. There are European and World Cup competitions, promotion, relegation, playoffs, and plenty of stats for you to get involved with as well. It's completely free to play. Just hit me up if you fancy joining. Obviously, you're a bit late this season, but you may as well still get involved and whet your appetite for next season. And let's be honest, you can probably still catch Chuck.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a bad run, to be fair. I started off the season really well, but now not. Yeah, it's really good. I will say it's a lot of fun. Really, really simple, just and a well organised website. I think to literally just pop in the scores and where you think, and there's unbelievable levels of stats and comparisons and all this kind of stuff you can get. So definitely hit up Mr. Jeff Pedder himself on the Twitters.
Where can they find you on Twitter, Jeff?
On Twitter. Just open Twitter. He's there.
Yeah, I'm on the front page.
He's on the front page.
Ubiquitous on Twitter. Yeah.
It's Jeff_Pedder, or just find me via the Miles Offside Pod feed, which I'm actively replying with abuse to.
Yeah. I mean, we are what we are. So we move on now to fixtures. Before Ian presses the button, I'll have to do it really quick again because my voice hurts when I do that. We've got another Friday night game week, but you probably just go out on Friday night because it's Arsenal again. Arsenal at home to Aston Villa. We then kick off Saturday with Chelsea versus Norwich. Triple captain Lukaku? Yeah? Probably not.
Not on his form, no.
No. Norwich to win. Palace have got Newcastle. Fuck me, if we lose that one or give that one away at the end, I'll be livid. Everton play Watford, Leeds, Wolves, Southampton, Burnley. Brighton, the mighty Brighton, absolutely shiton, host Manchester City. Please be a dicking. Brentford against Leicester, West Ham against Spurs, and Man United Liverpool in some sort of derby.
Some decent games there.
Some decent games. Jeff, you touched on it before. What's kind of your predictions with how you think West Ham are going to do against Spurs? Spurs are going to do against West Ham? I took that completely wrong, but never mind. We're at the end now. We're not going to edit this out. How do you feel about Spurs' chances?
Amazing.
It's a sight to behold, isn't it, live?
I think it will be a cagey affair. Actually, I don't imagine this to be a goal fest. If I was going to, just completely sit on the fence, I'd go for kind of a 1-1 draw. But I fancy us to maybe sneak it. I think coming into a little bit of form, I think we can. I think we can nick a win there.
Have you got the away game in the Conference League this week?
Do you know what? I do not know. That probably displays the level of interest I have in that
endorsement in UEFA's Europa Conference League.
I don't even know I couldn't tell you the teams that are in our group, and we've played 2 of them.
Well, there we go. I've also completely forgotten that Oscar recorded a 30-second thing about Chelsea. Do we want to play it now, or should we just put it off?
Yeah, he'll be furious if we don't. Bang it in.
Okay, so let's put it right at the end to make sure he listens. Here you go.
Hey guys, really sorry to be missing the show this week, but here's my 30-second thoughts on Chelsea. Top of the league, mate. Points don't lie. Table don't lie. Love being the best team in the world. Also, the 3-5-2 continues to not be good, which is frustrating because we had an almost perfect team last year. Addressed the one need we had, which was finishing, and then instead of just slotting in a perfect finisher into an almost perfect system, we have changed it, and it looks worse, and we are decidedly a mid-table team, which sucks. But up the Blues! First place, let's fucking go!
Believe it or not, when he says 30 seconds, he actually does 30 seconds. Your team shit, Ian, start the music, and let's get the flock out of here. So, thank you, Jeff. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for stepping in at such late notice. We hope you've had a good time.
It's been an absolute joy. Great to speak to you guys live and see how this all works so slick in the background. Thanks very much.
In a way, say goodbye, Ian Stimpson.
Thanks. Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, Johnny Worthington, Nate Witt, and Mark Dafford, and Andy Prempraise.